The great hall of the Varelian Empire's palace was filled with shining light and quiet whispers. Tall columns reached up to the high ceiling, and blue banners with silver stars hung everywhere. The most important people in the empire were gathered. Nobles, generals, and council members all wore their finest clothes. All waited for the royal ceremony to begin. At the center of the room, Princess Xyrella stood proudly. Her blue skin glowed softly under the bright lights, and her long silver hair flowed behind her. She was the first daughter of Empress Tasha, the ruler of the Varelian Empire. Everyone expected her to choose a noble Varelian as her mate, a partner who would strengthen the empire and their royal bloodline. But Xyrella was not like the others. She looked around the room with clear eyes, and then spoke loudly. "I will not marry any Varelian noble. I want a human." The hall went silent. People stared at her in shock. The idea was impossible. Humans were known across the galaxy as primitive. Their emotions were wild. Their genetics were unpredictable. For centuries, the Varelians kept themselves pure, believing their strength came from their own kind. Empress Tasha's face grew red with anger. She stood and looked at her daughter with hard eyes. "Xyrella, this is madness. You insult your ancestors and our empire. Humans are unfit to be part of this royal line." Xyrella held her head high. "Mother, I have seen the truth. Humans are strong in ways we are not. They have heart, courage, and the will to survive. I have met one, Captain Elias Ward from Earth. He saved my life. He taught me things no Varelian ever could." Murmurs began again in the hall. Some nobles whispered to each other, shaking their heads. Others frowned deeply. Empress Tasha took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "If you want this human, then he must prove himself worthy. The trial of blood and stars will decide if he can be your mate. If he lives, I will accept him." Xyrella nodded. She knew the trial was dangerous. Many who tried, failed, or died. But she believed in Elias. She had faith in his strength. Months before, far from the glittering palace, Xyrella had met Elias by chance. On a secret diplomatic mission to a remote star system, her ship was attacked by pirates. The attackers were ruthless and outnumbered the Varelian guards. Elias was a Terran captain on a nearby supply ship. When he saw the attack, he didn't hesitate. He took his crew and jumped into the battle to help. His ship was old, his weapons less advanced, but he fought with skill and bravery. During the fight, Xyrella's shuttle was damaged, and she was trapped inside. Elias risked his life to rescue her, pulling her from the wreck just before an explosion. After the battle, they found themselves alone on a small planet to hide from more pirates. They had little food and no way to call for help. At first, they were very different. Xyrella spoke calmly and carefully. Elias was blunt and joked even in danger. But over days, something changed. Elias showed kindness, bravery, and humor. Xyrella learned about human emotions, love, hope, anger, all messy, but real. Elias admired the calm power of the Varelians, but also found their way of life too strict and cold. When help finally arrived, they parted with a promise. Xyrella would find Elias again. She would ask her mother to accept him. Now in the palace, Xyrella waited as the High Council whispered and debated. The trial of blood and stars was the oldest test in the Empire. Any suitor who wanted to join the royal family had to survive 3 deadly challenges. No one expected a human to succeed. Empress Tasha's voice echoed through the hall. "Bring Captain Elias Ward before us." The doors opened and Elias entered. He looked small among the towering Varelians. His brown hair was messy and his clothes simple, but his eyes burned with quiet strength. The nobles stared coldly. Some laughed quietly, others scowled. Elias met Xyrella's gaze. She gave him a small smile. He nodded back. He was ready. The first trial was combat with a Psi beast, a giant creature that could read minds and attack with psychic power. Many warriors had died trying to fight it. Elias had no psychic power, but he had a sharp mind. As the beast charged, he dodged quickly and watched its moves. When it tried to use its power, Elias threw dust in its eyes, confusing it. Then, with quick punches and kicks, he managed to push the beast back. It finally fled, surprised by his courage. The crowd gasped. A human had survived the first trial. The second challenge was a telepathic labyrinth, a maze created inside the mind where suitors had to find their way using psychic clues. Without powers, Elias struggled, but Xyrella secretly sent him mental hints, risking her own standing. With her help, Elias solved the puzzles, finding the center of the maze. He showed patience and determination. The nobles began to murmur, some with respect. The final test was the hardest, a moral sacrifice. The suitor had to choose between saving themselves or an innocent stranger in danger. Elias did not hesitate. He risked his life to save a Varelian child caught in a collapsing cave, even when it meant his own chance of survival was low. The crowd was silent, then erupted in applause. But as Elias left the arena, he suddenly collapsed. His face twisted. In pain, guards rushed to him. Someone had poisoned him. The hall was filled with shocked cries. Who would do this? Was it the anti-human faction trying to stop him? Xyrella rushed to Elias's side. "Stay with me," she whispered. "You've come too far to lose now." Empress Tasha looked on, her expression unreadable. The trial was not over. The great hall had barely settled from the shock of Elias's sudden collapse when the Empress's voice rang out sharply. "Take him to the healer's chamber at once. Find who poisoned him. This treachery will not stand." Two strong guards lifted Elias gently and carried him away through the grand corridors. Princess Xyrella followed, her heart pounding with worry. She had seen Elias survive impossible odds. Now poison threatened to end everything. In the quiet, glowing room of the healer's chamber, a group of Varelian healers worked quickly. Their hands glowed with soft blue light as they scanned Elias's body, searching for the toxin. "He is strong," said one healer, "but the poison spreads fast. We must act now." Xyrella stood near the entrance, refusing to leave. The healers did not speak to her, but their faces showed concern. She held Elias's hand softly. "Please, hold on," she whispered. Outside the palace, the news of Elias's poisoning spread like wildfire. Nobles debated fiercely. Some blamed the anti-human faction led by Lord Varnak, who had always opposed the princess's choice. Others said it was a test from the gods. The High Council met in secret chambers to discuss the future. The Empress, though angry, remained calm. "If this man dies," she said quietly, "then so does the chance for change in our empire." Xyrella, watching her mother, felt a strange mix of hope and fear. She could not lose Elias. Not now, not ever. Meanwhile, Elias's mind drifted in and out of darkness. Memories flickered. Of the pirate attack, the secret planet, and the strange blue princess who saw more in him than the rest of the galaxy. He woke suddenly to see Xyrella's face above him. She smiled gently, her silver hair framing her face, like a shining halo. "You are strong, Elias. You must survive." Elias tried to speak but found his throat dry and weak. Still, he nodded. Days passed as the healers worked tirelessly. They used ancient medicines, advanced technology, and psychic energy to fight the poison. Slowly, Elias's strength returned. While Elias healed, Xyrella refused to rest. She called her most trusted advisors and loyal guards to find out who had tried to kill him. One loyal guard, Captain Sari, reported strange movements near the trial arena. "I saw Lord Varnak's men moving in the shadows before the poison was found." Xyrella's eyes narrowed. Lord Varnak was a powerful noble who wanted to keep the Varelian blood pure. He hated the idea of a human prince. "We must act carefully," Xyrella said. "If we reveal this now, it could start a war." To uncover more, Xyrella turned to the palace's AI historian, a machine with access to centuries of secret knowledge. "Show me the records of Varnak's family," she commanded. The AI's voice was calm and mechanical. Lord Varnak's ancestors led a campaign to suppress outsiders from the Empire's history. They altered genetic records and banned interspecies alliances. Zyrella's heart sank. The Empire's purity was built on lies and fear. Meanwhile, Elias, now stronger, began to train again. He knew the final part of the trial of blood and stars was coming, a challenge that would test his heart, mind, and soul. Zyrella visited him daily, sharing stories of her people, their customs, and dreams. Elias shared stories of Earth, its strange foods, music, and human humor. One evening, as twin moons rose in the sky, Elias said, "You know, your empire may be older than Earth, but humans fight in a different way. We don't just follow rules, we adapt, we surprise." Zyrella smiled. "That is why I chose you. You bring something new to us." But the threat of Lord Varnak grew darker. Varnak met with his followers in a secret room deep under the palace. His face was cold and hard. "This human weakens our bloodline. We must remove him before he corrupts the throne." A young noble asked, "What if the Empress and Princess do not agree?" Varnak smiled cruelly. "Then we will take power ourselves. The Empire will be purified by any means necessary." Back in the palace, the day of the final trial arrived. The great crowd gathered again. The arena was silent and tense. Elias stood ready, though still weak from the poison. The challenge was simple in words, but hard in truth. "Show us your heart," the trial master announced. "Choose between your life and another's." A child's cry echoed suddenly. Small Varelian boy was trapped in a collapsing cave deep within the palace grounds. A test set to see if Elias could act with true compassion. Elias did not hesitate. He ran toward the danger, pushing past guards and ignoring orders. The crowd gasped as the earth shook and stones fell. Using his quick mind and strength, Elias found the boy just as the cave began to close. He carried the child out, barely escaping before the cave collapsed. The crowd erupted in cheers. Elias had passed the greatest test. He had shown courage, kindness, and sacrifice. Princess Zyrella stood and shouted, "He is worthy, he is my mate." But not everyone was happy. From the shadows, Lord Varnak's followers fumed and whispered, "This is not over." That night, as the palace slept, a quiet meeting took place between Zyrella and her mother. "Your choice has divided the Empire," Empress Tisha said, her voice heavy. "But your courage shines. If Elias lives, he may have a place by your side." Zyrella nodded, hope shining in her eyes. "Then we prepare for the future," the Empress said softly. "The Empire must change, or it will fall." The palace of the Varelian Empire was quieter than usual. Though the trial of blood and stars had ended with Elias's victory, peace did not come. Rumors spread like wildfire. Some people welcomed the human captain, while others saw him as a threat. Princess Zyrella walked through the marble halls with purpose. Her silver hair shone in the soft lights. She had a new mission: to find out who tried to poison Elias and stop them before they could do more harm. In a hidden room deep below the palace, Zyrella gathered her closest friends and trusted guards. Captain Sari, a loyal soldier, and Kale, a skilled hacker who worked with the palace AI, stood by her side. "We cannot let Lord Varnak's shadow grow," Zyrella said firmly. "We must uncover the truth and protect Elias and the future of the Empire." Kyle nodded. "I have been searching the palace networks for signs of sabotage. I found strange messages between Varnak's followers. They speak in codes and plans." Captain Sari added, "Varnak has spies everywhere. He controls many nobles who fear change." Zyrella's face grew serious. "Then we must act carefully. If we expose them too soon, they will disappear." Meanwhile, Elias was adjusting to life in the palace. He was still learning about Varelian customs and their strong psychic powers. The people stared at him sometimes, curious, afraid, or jealous. He spent hours with Zyrella talking about their worlds. Elias told her stories of Earth, of its cities, oceans, and people who fought for freedom. Zyrella shared the history of the Varelians, their rise to power, and their ancient traditions. One afternoon, Elias sat in the palace gardens watching two suns set. Zyrella joined him quietly. You changed my life, she said softly. You showed me that strength is more than power, it is hope. Elias smiled. And you taught me that the stars are bigger than I thought. They shared a quiet moment, but danger lurked nearby. Lord Varnak, in his dark chamber, watched the Empire with cold eyes. The princess's foolishness will destroy us, he whispered. But I will not let that happen. He met secretly with his followers, planning their next move. We will start a rebellion. The Empire needs to return to order. The humans must be removed. His voice was sharp. If the Empress will not act, then we will take power by force. The rebels trained. In hidden bases, they gathered weapons, ships, and spies. Soon, the Empire would face a war not just of armies, but of ideas. Back in the palace, Xyrella and her team continued their investigation. Kale's hacking uncovered secret files, proof that Varnak's faction had been rewriting history and controlling genetic records for decades. This explains the fear of humans, Kyle said. They erased any record of human strength or alliances. Xyrella frowned. Our empire was built on lies and fear. Captain Sari clenched her fists. We must tell the Empress. But when they met with Empress Tasha, she hesitated. These are dangerous accusations. If we move too fast, we risk civil war. Xyrella stepped forward. Mother, the empire is already divided. We can hide the truth or we can face it and build a stronger future. The Empress looked at her daughter with tired eyes. You are wise beyond your years. As tensions rose, the people of the empire began to choose sides. Some believed in Xyrella and Elias, hopeful for change. Others followed Varnak's call for purity and tradition. In the capital streets, protests grew, louder. Humans and Varelians argued fiercely. The fragile peace was breaking. One evening, as Xyrella walked through the city, she was stopped by an angry crowd shouting, "Traitor! Human lover! Leave the Empire!" Guards stepped forward to protect her, but Elias appeared beside her. Her pass, he said firmly. We fight for all of us, not just one race. The crowd hesitated, then slowly parted. Elias's calm strength and honest words surprised many. But the rebellion was growing. One night, spies told Xyrella that Varnak's forces planned to attack the palace. The news came too late. Explosions rocked the city. Rebel ships fired on the palace walls. The great battle for the Empire had begun. Xyrella and Elias stood together on the palace balcony, watching the fires below. We must protect our people, Xyrella said, and show them that together we are stronger. Elias nodded. Then, let's fight for the future. The palace alarms blared. Soldiers rushed to defend the gates. The war for the Varelian Empire had started, and no one knew who would win. The sky above the Varelian capital burned red with the fires of war. Explosions echoed through the streets, shaking the marble towers and casting shadows on the frightened faces of the city's people. The rebellion led by Lord Varnak was no longer a secret. It was a full-scale attack on the Empire's heart. Inside the Grand Palace, Princess Xyrella stood beside Elias on the balcony overlooking the chaos below. The weight of responsibility pressed down on her, but she refused to show fear. We cannot let this destroy everything we believe in, she said firmly. The Empire must survive. We must protect the innocent. Elias placed a steady hand on her shoulder. We fight not just for power, but for hope, for a future where all can live in peace. Behind them, the palace guards hurried to prepare defenses. Captain Sari organized the soldiers, barking clear orders. Hold the gates. Protect the Empress and the Princess at all costs. The rebels' forces advanced relentlessly. Their ships hovered over the city, dropping bombs that shattered buildings and blocked streets with rubble. Varnak's soldiers fought fiercely, believing their cause was just and necessary. Yet the defenders had courage. Despite being outnumbered, the palace guards used their advanced technology and psychic powers to push back the attackers. Shields flashed, and beams of energy lit the battlefield. In one fierce clash near the palace gates, Elias fought side by side with the Varelian warriors. His earth-made weapons were crude compared to theirs, but his skill and bravery inspired those around him. "Hold the line," Elias shouted, blocking a powerful strike aimed at a young soldier. The soldier nodded, fighting back with renewed strength. Inside the palace, Empress Tisha sat in her chamber, her face pale but determined. She watched the battle through a crystal screen. "This war is tearing us apart," she whispered, "but perhaps it is the only way to change." Her advisor approached carefully. "Your Majesty, we must consider surrender." The Empress shook her head. "No. We must stand strong for our people and for the future." Meanwhile, Zirela and Elias moved through the palace corridors, checking on the wounded and encouraging the defenders. In one room, they found a group of young Varelian children, hiding, frightened by the sounds of war. Zirela knelt beside them, her voice soft but strong. "Do not be afraid. We will protect you." Elias smiled and handed out small tokens of comfort, stories of Earth's heroes and songs from distant worlds. The children's eyes lit up with hope. Outside, the battle raged on. Lord Varnak appeared on the front lines, his armor shining dark and cruel. He raised his voice to rally his troops. "Fight for the Empire's purity. Fight for our future." He charged forward, his soldiers following. Elias met Varnak face to face on the broken street. The two men stared at each other. One, a captain from a distant world, the other a proud Varelian noble. "You do not understand," Elias said calmly. "The future is not built on fear and hate." Varnak sneered. "You are a foreigner, you do not belong here." Their battle was fierce. Energy weapons clashed with human grit and quick thinking. Elias used his agility and earth training to dodge Varnak's powerful strikes. But Varnak was strong and ruthless. The fight pushed both men to their limits. Back inside the palace, Captain Sari received a report. The rebels had found a secret tunnel into the palace vaults, the heart of the Empire's power. If they reach the vaults, they will control the Empire's weapons, she warned. Zirela quickly made a decision. "I will lead a team to stop them," Elias insisted. "I go with you." Together they moved through shadowed halls and hidden passages, their footsteps echoing quietly. In the vault, the rebels were already breaking through the heavy doors. Varnak's voice came through a communicator. "Seize the weapons. The Empire will be ours." Suddenly, Zirela and Elias burst into the room with their team. The battle was brutal. The rebels fought with desperation, but Zirela's team had the advantage of surprise. Elias grabbed a weapon and helped disable the attackers. And the climax of the fight, Varnak appeared again, furious. He confronted Zirela. "You cannot stop the future, princess," he snarled. Zirela stood tall. "The future belongs to those who have courage and heart, not hate." With a swift move, she disarmed Varnak. Elias helped bind him securely. The rebels, seeing their leader defeated, began to surrender. The palace slowly returned to silence. The Empress met Zirela and Elias in the throne room. "You have saved the Empire today," she said, her voice soft but proud. Zirela looked at Elias and smiled. "Together, we will rebuild." Elias nodded. A future where humans and Varelians stand as one. But the war had changed everything. The Empire was no longer just about bloodlines and tradition. It was about unity, courage, and hope. Zirela and Elias knew the road ahead would be long and difficult. Old fears and enemies remained, but they also knew that together, they could face whatever the stars held. The morning sun cast gentle light over the Varelian capital. The battle scars of the recent war were still visible: broken buildings, burned streets, and quiet homes where families once lived in peace. But the people gathered in the city square felt a new energy, a hope that had not been there before. Princess Zirela stood on the great stage beside Elias. The crowd, a mix of humans and Varelians, waited eagerly to hear her words. Many faces showed tiredness, but all held a spark of belief. Zirela's voice was clear and strong. "This war was painful, but it has shown us something important, that we are stronger together. Our future will be built on trust, not fear, on hope, not hate." Elias nodded and took her hand. We fought for a future where everyone belongs, humans and Varelians side by side. We will rebuild this empire, together. The Empress Tisha appeared beside them, her expression calm, but proud. My daughter has shown great wisdom and courage. It is time for the empire to change. We will open our doors to new ideas, new friends, and new hope. The crowd cheered, voices rising in a song of unity. The ancient barriers that kept the races apart were breaking down, but rebuilding was not easy. The damage was great, and old fears still lingered in the hearts of many. Cyrella and Elias worked tirelessly, meeting with leaders, healing wounds, and teaching that strength came from acceptance. They created schools where Varelian and human children learned together. They formed councils with voices from all races. They rebuilt homes with hands from every corner of the empire. Slowly, peace returned. Yet, there were those who still resisted. Lord Varnak and his few remaining followers were imprisoned, but their ideas had not vanished. Secret whispers and small riots reminded the leaders that change was fragile. One day, Zarella met with Elias in the palace gardens. "The battle is over," she said quietly, "but the war for hearts continues." Elias smiled softly. "We have come far. We must keep walking forward." Months passed, and the empire grew stronger. Trade routes opened, cultures blended, and new technologies flourished. One evening, as the twin moons rose, Cyrella and Elias stood on the balcony once more. "We have built something new," Cyrella said. "A family of stars." Elias squeezed her hand. "And this is only the beginning." The story of the human who became a prince and the alien princess who dared to love him became a legend across the galaxy. It reminded everyone that hope could break even the strongest chains. The Varelian Empire was no longer just a place of old rules and fears. It was a beacon, a home where differences were celebrated and the future was bright.